Dr. Harper, I've got a couple questions for you. Do you believe that America should be a colorblind society? For instance, should people be treated differently based on their race? It's just a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no question.
It's a yes or no question.
It is a, as I said in the beginning of my testimony, America
yes or
has
no
not done right by indigenous peoples, by Black people, by Asian American and Pacific Islander people.
Should people be treated differently based on their race? Yes or no?
People should receive the services and the support and the remedies that are
your answer
owed to
is
them.
that they should be treated differently based on their race.
They should receive the remedies that are owed to them because of the systemic racism and injustice.
Do you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices?
I do not believe that white people are the only qualified people for jobs.
I didn't say that. Nobody said that. I asked you if race should be considered in employer hiring practices. And you're not going to intimidate me by slandering me as a racist.
You're also, I did not call you a racist.
No,
you're not going to intimidate me by insisting that I called you a racist.
Straightforward question. It's a yes or no question. Should race be considered in employer hiring practices? Yes or no?
I believe that diversity ought to be considered as companies and other organizations attempt to reflect their customers, our country.
I'll take that as a yes. Which race do you think should be preferred?
I do not think that a single race should be preferred.
Well, you just said that you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices.
I don't know. There's going to be a transcript of this hearing. I didn't say that in that way.
Okay, why don't you explain what you believe?
What I said and what I believe is that the demographic composition of workplaces, our nation's military, and so on, our Congress ought to reflect the diversity of the United States of America.
Demographic composition. Racial demographic, is that what you're saying?
Racial, gender.
Okay, so race should be a factor in employer hiring practices. Yeah, that's what you're saying, is it not?
Organizations ought to attempt to match the diversity of
You're
their...
hopping around the question.
No, I am answering quite straightforwardly, as a matter of fact.
Who gets to determine which races are preferred?
I already told you I don't have a single racial group.
You just told me that you believe that the racial demographic makeup should be taken into account in hiring practices.
And it should be reflected in all levels of companies and other organizations.
Okay, let's talk about college admissions. If two different children are applying for college, let's say one is white and one is Black, and there's one slot available, should they be evaluated based on the same objective criteria? Test scores, for instance.
Are you familiar with holistic admissions?
Should they be held to the same standards regarding test scores?
I am a proponent of holistic admissions.
It's just a yes or no question.
Yeah, no, I can't answer that question for you as a proponent of holistic admissions.
Got it. I'll take that as a no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
How do you feel about the Black community receiving reparations?
I'm against that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, why so?
Well, first of all, what is the Black community? So, for example, do you mean like recent immigrants from Haiti or Nigeria?
I do not. No.
Okay, for sure. So you're meaning like ancestral descendants of slaves.
Correct.
That could be proven with documentation.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. So to be consistent, do you believe that other groups that have been mistreated in America should also receive reparations?
What are those other groups?
Well, not necessarily by America, but let's just take one. Jewish Americans, right?
Okay.
They almost got eliminated in the Holocaust. Should they receive reparations?
Not from us.
Okay, not from us.
Not from the United States, that is.
Okay. So here's my view, and I want to hear yours.
Okay.
Which is that I did not own slaves, and you were not a slave.
Correct.
Right. So we are individuals, and therefore we cannot be held accountable or should receive something from something that didn't happen to us or something we did not do. That is a basic law of justice, that I can't be held accountable for something that somebody looked like me did, and you should not benefit from something that somebody you were related to. Now, you'll probably say systemic racism and how that passed down to generations. Happy to address that. The problem with reparations, though, is basically what you're saying is I'm going to take money from Charlie Kirk for something he didn't do and give it to a group of something, to somebody of something they also didn't do. For what reason? How is that just?
So not so much how is it just, but there are those arguments that says because of what happened in the past, this group of people have been negatively affected from this nation's crimes against humanity to that certain group of people. And that's how we see it, or how some people see it, if you will.
Okay, sure. But I will say that even if there is some truth to that, which I wouldn't even be willing to grant very much, because Black America was doing incredibly well before the not incredible. They were pacing to be even richer than white America. Is that we must look through the question of, is it just and moral to take from one group, especially first and second generation immigrants that had nothing to do with this? So think about it. Your tax base would be taxing, like, if anyone here is Irish or Polish and your family came 100 years ago, we would be taxing people that had nothing to do with it. And I'll go a step further. My family fought on the Union side of the Civil War, right? So you're going to be taxing Charlie Kirk, whose descendants fought to free the slaves, to go give money to people that were descended, from slaves. So what is a way that we could try to help all communities? Here's maybe we can find some common ground, right? Instead of reparations.
Sure.
Is that we need to break the cartel of public sector teacher unions, allow school choice to occur, and make it easier for people of all backgrounds, but specifically Hispanic and Black individuals and young kids, to have a quality education, because a good education in K through 12 is one of the most assured ways that they'll be able to succeed later in life. Secondly, we need to put fathers back in the home.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And 70% of Black kids are raised without a stable father in this in the country. So if we can find common ground on that, I think that would go a lot further than just giving cash for people that happen to be related to something evil that happened a little while ago.
The greatest crisis in our culture isn't racial. No, it's spiritual, it's moral, and it's familial. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, from correctional officers in the prisons to retired educators to single mothers and young Black men, there is a clear thread that the absence of fathers and the breakdown of the family is actually breaking the future of our children. Literally, the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. And it's not just the absence in the physical sense. No. But when fathers are absent, there is that absence of wisdom that they could have provided, that discipline and moral leadership.
How do you believe feminism should be defined, and do you think it can be reconciled with conservatism?
Well, so yes and no. It depends. There's first, second, and third wave feminism. First wave feminism is that women should have a right to vote. Second wave feminism had a lot of problems, which is the female liberation movement, that women should not just be at home, but they should get into the workforce. Third wave feminism is complete garbage, which is toxic modern day feminism, which is irreconcilable with any decent society, which is far more about hating men than actually respecting women. And you guys all know the type of that kind of feminism. There are some good aspects of second wave feminism, but at the core of feminism, we have to ask the question is, has it made American women happier? And it hasn't, actually. American women are more suicidal, more depressed, more anxious than they were prior. And I believe, and again, we get in trouble for saying this, is that you should have the agency and liberty to do whatever you want. But many women, a majority, like 90+% deep down, have this urge to reproduce and to raise children. And we are telling them to forsake that and go become a CEO of a shoe company. And we're wondering why so many young ladies are miserable and angry, because they're at war with something within them that they actually want to do, which is to have a relationship, have children, and nurture future humans into this world.
I would like to propose an alternative perspective. I'm conservative, but I'm also a feminist, and I think that a better way to propose feminism in the public media would be not to eliminate having children and tell women that they shouldn't have children, but to figure out your career first before you decide to settle down, because you can't really undo that once you have kids.
So I think it's the exact opposite. I think you should have kids first, then do your career, because which one has a timetable on it?
True, but once you have kids, you're committed to that, and you can't really have as much of a career. So you should kind of define your I guess what I'm trying to.
Kids are way more important than being, a data scientist at Dropbox.
But okay, what if you don't want to have kids?
That's fine. Then go do it. You're risking that you might end up super miserable. And that's what we're seeing, is that we have seen a spike where half of women in their 30s that are unmarried are on antidepressants. Half. We've never seen a spike like this. And again, I'm not saying that's the only reason, but we've never, ever seen a generation or a group of people so angry, so miserable, so medicated. And there's obviously something wrong. And we know who are the happiest women in America. Women with 3 or more kids are the happiest women in America. Least suicidal. Yes, right? And by the way, it's not easy, but it's super deep. And so again, if you want to go be a data scientist, God bless you. This is a country, free country, go do that. I just think that there's a part of the story that isn't being told, which is that the opposite should be like, have kids as soon as possible, and then you can go pursue your career in your late 30s once your kids are 18 years old. And it's the opposite. You know, we tell people, wait. And by the way, when you reach your 30s, you might be infertile, you might have trouble having kids, you might need IVF, you might need all these other very, harsh treatments, and you might not even find a mate.
The insanity of today's generation, ladies and gentlemen, when somebody speaks the truth, guess what? They are called racist or bigots. Literally, when someone points to physical responsibility, they are dismissed as lacking compassion. And when somebody says, raise the expectations, guess what? They are accused of oppression. They are called oppressors. Literally. And when someone like Charlie engages with patience and logic, even helping those who disagree articulate their points better, still there are some who find a way to villainize him. Can you imagine? I mean, what madness is this, ladies and gentlemen? A generation that despises correction, that hates truth, and chooses emotion over evidence and logic. Isn't that concerning? That is very concerning. Yes, the internet is giving everybody a platform, but the wisdom of the elders somehow is being drowned out by the foolishness of today's crowds. The foolishness of today's crowds. People now have a tendency of following the trends, mainstream media, over truth. Wherever they are the crowds, that's what people are choosing to support. That is sad. But the goodness of the matter, there is always still hope. You see? There's always still hope. Why? And why do I say that? Because there are still young men, young people who are choosing to listen. You see? There are still students who are willing to debate with respect. That's the goodness of the matter. There's still students who are willing to debate with respect. And there are still black men and women, Christian mothers, working fathers, and young thinkers standing up and saying, he's right. This is the truth. And we need the change. What Charlie's doing, this is actually good, you see, because he's planting those seeds of change. You see, those seeds of change that have the ability to transform a person's life, especially from the youngsters, the youths. That's where the change starts. So there is always still hope, ladies and gentlemen. And the sad part actually is, or has been, that we have replaced fathers with feelings. No, you can't do that. We have replaced fathers with feelings, replaced discipline with dependence. Replaced discipline with dependence. We don't succeed that way. And to make even matters worse, we replaced God with government. And that's the most sad one. We have replaced God with government, replaced the truth with tolerance. Man, but like I said, there is still hope, because there is still time. There is still time for change and to change. That's the goodness of the matter. So this generation doesn't need another celebrity. No, it needs a man of courage. It needs a man of courage, women of conviction, women of conviction, families restored, truth preached, and God honored. You see? That's what we need. That's what we need. So let us be the ones who will speak boldly, love deeply, correct gently, and live responsibly. Let us be that people who live responsibly, because when the families break, the future shakes. When families are broken, there is no future.